Here's where Mediterranean and DASH diets diverge significantly, and understanding this difference allows you to make informed choices based on your individual situation. The DASH diet explicitly recommends 2 to 3 servings daily of low-fat or fat-free dairy, emphasizing its calcium, potassium, and protein content. Traditional Mediterranean diets, by contrast, include moderate amounts of full-fat fermented dairy, yogurt, and cheese, but not necessarily daily or in large quantities. Let's unpack what this means. The DASH rationale for dairy is straightforward. Milk, yogurt, and cheese are concentrated sources of calcium, which many Americans underconsume, and they also provide potassium, magnesium, and protein. The low-fat recommendation emerged from concerns about saturated fat and cardiovascular disease. The original DASH trials showed blood pressure reduction with the inclusion of low-fat dairy, so it became a core component. The Mediterranean approach reflects cultural patterns. Sheep and goat milk, yogurt, and cheese appear regularly but not in large amounts. The fermentation process in yogurt and aged cheese reduces lactose, making these foods more tolerable for people with lactose sensitivity. Full-fat versions are traditional, without the fat anxiety that characterizes American nutritional thinking. Recent research has complicated the saturated fat picture. Some studies suggest that saturated fat from dairy, particularly fermented dairy, may not have the same cardiovascular effects as saturated fat from meat. Full-fat dairy consumption in some research correlates with equal or better metabolic health outcomes compared to low-fat versions. This is controversial and not settled science, but it challenges the automatic assumption that low-fat is superior. So how do you decide? If you tolerate dairy well and enjoy it, either approach can work. If you're following DASH primarily for blood pressure management, the researched protocol includes low-fat dairy. If you're drawn to the Mediterranean pattern and prefer full-fat yogurt and cheese, that's supported by traditional practice and some contemporary research. For people who don't tolerate dairy, either due to lactose intolerance or dairy sensitivity, both patterns can be adapted. Calcium is available from leafy greens like collards and kale, fortified plant milks, sardines with bones, almonds, and beans. Meeting calcium requirements without dairy requires more attention but is entirely feasible. Aim for 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams daily depending on age and gender. The fermented dairy aspect deserves specific attention. Yogurt and kefir with live active cultures provide probiotics that support gut health. The fermentation process increases certain B vitamins and makes calcium more bioavailable. If including dairy, prioritizing fermented versions over plain milk offers additional benefits. Look for labels indicating live active cultures rather than yogurt that's been heat-treated after fermentation, which kills the beneficial bacteria. Quality considerations matter, though they're often overstated. Grass-fed dairy has modestly higher omega-3 content and different ratios of certain fats. Organic dairy avoids antibiotics and synthetic hormones. These are legitimate considerations but shouldn't become barriers to dairy consumption if only conventional options are affordable or available. Some dairy is better than no dairy if you've decided dairy fits your approach. The environmental and ethical concerns about dairy production are valid and beyond the scope of pure nutritional analysis, but they influence many people's choices. Plant-based alternatives fortified with calcium and vitamin D can replace dairy's nutritional role, though they don't provide the protein content of dairy. Assessing fortification labels is important. Calcium content varies widely among plant milks. There's no single right answer here. Both Mediterranean and DASH patterns are evidence-based and can be adapted to individual dairy tolerance, preferences, and values. The key is making an informed decision rather than just defaulting to whatever you've always done. Whether you choose low-fat dairy DASH style, full-fat fermented dairy Mediterranean style, or plant-based alternatives, you can successfully implement these dietary patterns with excellent health outcomes.